Chapter 9. Questions and Answers. Marianne opened the back door of her car and placed Maura inside. Sizable amounts of blood seeped through the white terry cloth towel that was wrapped around Maura's body. She sat in a fetal position in the back of the car with her hands wrapped tightly around her legs. Her teeth chattered as she looked blankly out the front window as she rocked back and forth. She was in a state of shock. When she saw the rear view and side mirrors, she buried her face into her knees, frightened that the reflection girl might appear again. Marianne started the car, and the ignition sputtered. A click, click, clicking sound. Maura lifted her head, covered her ears, and searched around the car for the source of the sound.
She's everywhere. I can hear her,
Maura yelled. Maura scooted behind the seat of her mother. She wrapped her arms in a death grip around her mother's neck. Marianne, unable to breathe, tried to pull Maura's arms from around her neck, and after some struggling, succeeded.
Who's going to get you, Maura?
Marianne asked, breathless. Marianne took her hands off the steering wheel and rubbed her hands up and down Maura's arms. The coldness of Maura's body shocked her. Marianne took one hand and turned the key in the ignition. The car started. She then turned the dial on the heat to provide her daughter with some warmth.
Take a deep breath. Everything will be fine.
Maura loosened her grip and, after a few moments, settled back into her seat. She clicked the lock button on her passenger side door and all the doors locked. Marianne put the car in reverse, and once she was out of her gated subdivision, she floored the accelerator and sped to the closest hospital. Concern, worry, and fear were the unspoken emotions that caused Marianne to perform rolling stops and honk her horn at nearby vehicles as she sought to get her daughter the help she needed. Maura covered her eyes and laid her head in her lap. Every few moments, Marianne reached over and caressed her daughter's hand.
Maura, you want to discuss what happened in the bathroom, darling?
She asked, worried. Maura kept her head facing toward the floor and did not speak. Marianne decided to leave the topic alone. She did not want to make matters worse by triggering something that would cause her daughter to react in an uncontrollable way. Marianne looked in the rearview mirror. She noticed Maura had lifted her head. Snot ran down her nose, and her towel was getting bloodier by the minute. Maura moved closer toward the back of the driver's seat. She leaned forward and whispered in her mother's ear.
Do you remember the hush ghost that appeared in my dreams?
Maura whispered.
Yes, Maura, I remember. She tried to pull me into the bathroom mirror,
Maura whispered.
Who tried to pull you into the mirror?
Marianne asked.
The hush ghost,
Maura yelled. Marianne remained expressionless. This was more severe than she imagined. She looked up and saw the sign, Valley Memorial Hospital. As she drove toward the building, memories detailing her own encounters with hospitals surfaced. Marianne did not want to turn right into the hospital parking lot, but Maura's mental and physical well-being depended upon it. She chose a space that was closest to the primary entrance. Marianne jumped out of the car and opened Maura's door. As she helped her out of the car, she looked Maura in the eye and held Maura's hand.
If you repeat what you shared with me in the car, they will take you away from us, and I don't know what I would do if someone took you from me. She's getting stronger, and she will get me. Why won't you believe me?
Maura cried. She dropped her head into her hand and let the tears fall freely from her eyes. Marianne wrapped Maura in the towel and got a better glimpse of the cuts and lacerations on Maura's body. The puncture wounds and the scratches all along her arms from the broken glass alarmed Marianne. Maura and Marianne's eyes met.
Do you think I would harm myself?
Maura asked. Marianne shifted her eyes to Maura's wounds and took the towel and swathed it around her arm.
Let's get someone to examine these,
she replied. Marianne helped Maura out of the car. Maura put her left arm around her mother's neck. They both limped toward the emergency doors. The rain started again. Its drops sounded like miniature drums as they beat against the pavement. Marianne was moving so fast she almost fell in a small pothole filled with water. Her hair and clothes were wet. She was out of breath from the stress of carrying Maura's body weight coupled with her own. As they power walked toward the hospital doors, she noticed that Maura's pace was slowing. She looked at her daughter and saw her eyes roll back in her head and a stream of blood running down her leg. She felt the pull of Moira's body falling to the ground. Adrenaline surged through Marianne's body, and with the strength she did not know existed, she picked Moira up and ran through the automatic doors. Once inside, she stood at the front of the emergency waiting room and yelled,
"Somebody, anybody, help my daughter!"
Her voice traveled throughout the waiting room and startled a few of the patients. An infant child cried, and a small little boy dropped his sippy cup on the ground. One man shielded his daughter's face so she would not have nightmares about Marianne and Moira's appearance. Drops of bloody water dripped from both their clothing. Marianne and Moira looked as if they had just stepped off the set of a horror movie. The middle-aged receptionist with streaks of gray in her hair at the front desk put down her sandwich and picked up the phone when Marianne and Moira came through the door. This was not the hospital in which their primary physician practiced, but it was the closest one to their home. A male nurse came running with the gurney and took Moira from Marianne's arms. "What happened to her?" he said, shocked as he examined the cuts on her arms and puncture wounds on her legs. He leaned Moira against the gurney to relieve Marianne of the burden of Moira's weight. She searched for the correct set of words that would allow her to explain the situation without her or Moira appearing crazy. After a short, awkward silence, she pushed forth an answer.
"I heard screaming. When I found her, she was barely conscious in puddles of her blood."
The nurse had more questions, but decided he would let a licensed physician continue the probing. He waved for another nurse's help, and they both lifted Moira on the gurney and rushed it down the long hallway. Marianne followed closely behind, but when she reached the emergency room doors that said "for personnel only," one of the male nurses stopped and turned toward her. "We will take it from here," he replied. Marianne did not argue. She did what she was told. She nervously bit her nails and had a seat on one of the chairs. Her teeth chattered. She wrapped her arms around her body to keep herself warm. She was in an urgent hurry and did not grab a jacket. Marianne surveyed the room, and several patrons in the hospital stared at her. It made her uncomfortable.
"Is it my guilt, or are they silently judging me?"
Marianne stood up and paced up and down the foyer as she waited for a report of her daughter's well-being. Her clothes were wet and dripping bloody water all over the floor. The middle-aged woman with the creamy vanilla skin tone who phoned the nurses when Marianne and Moira walked in waved at Marianne to get her attention.
Miss,
she uttered. Marianne, preoccupied with her own thoughts, did not pay the woman any attention. The receptionist stood up, walked from behind the desk, and tapped Marianne on the shoulder. Her unexpected tap caused Marianne to jump and almost bump into another young lady sitting not too far from where she stood.
"I'm so sorry,"
she replied. The young woman moved to another seat across the aisle. The receptionist handed Marianne a clean smock, an ice pack, and a towel.
"You should freshen up. The bathroom straight ahead,"
the receptionist said. Marianne looked down at her blouse. It was ripped, had spots of blood, and one of her buttons were undone.
"Thank you,"
Marianne replied. Marianne looked behind her and noticed a trail of light red water that a janitor was mopping up. She nodded to the gentleman in appreciation. He responded with a grimacing scowl and continued picking up the water while placing down yellow caution signs. Marianne headed to the bathroom. To calm herself, she inhaled and exhaled long, slow, deep breaths. Slow, meditative-style breathing always relaxed her. Once inside the restroom, she wiped traces of blood from her face and hands. She examined herself in the mirror. The blood from her head injury had dripped down her face, neck, and onto her blouse.
"No wonder everyone was staring,"
she thought. Marianne placed both her hands on the side of the sink, and streams of tears flowed from her eyes.
"It's all my fault,"
she uttered. The acoustics in the bathroom caused her words to reverberate. She ran warm water over the towel and wiped the blood from her face. Every few washes, she wrung out the towel's excess water and watched the red-colored water drip into the sink. With every rinse, the water from the towel became cleaner.
"If only our pain and hurt was this easy to cleanse,"
she thought. Her tears and her daughter's blood mingled together and circled down the drain. Marianne wiped her nose, changed her shirt, and checked her appearance in the mirror. She wrapped her soiled blouse in the towel and headed back to the waiting room. When she returned, the receptionist handed her a clipboard with a few forms to fill out regarding Moira and her medical history. The receptionist placed her hand on top of Marianne's to offer solace.
"It will be okay,"
she said. Marianne appreciated the woman's kind gesture, but wondered why she would make such statements after seeing the condition of her daughter. She took a seat along the back wall as far away from the other patients as possible. She regretted what she had to do next. Call Jackson. They agreed they would always keep each other abreast on any life-threatening situation involving their daughters, regardless of how they felt about each other. The last thing she needed was his judgment coupled with her guilt. She did not have a choice. She had to call. She fished in her purse for her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Jackson's number. She took a deep breath, dialed the number, and placed the receiver to her ear.
"Hello, Marianne,"
Jackson answered. Marianne searched for the correct words that would inform but not worry Jackson.
"Marianne, is everything okay?"
"Moira and I are at Valley Memorial Hospital. She had an accident,"
replied Marianne.
"I just dropped her off a few hours ago. What happened?"
Jackson questioned.
"I'll explain everything when you get here. Just hurry, and leave Veronica at the house."
Marianne hung up the phone and picked up a magazine on the seat next to her. She flipped through the pages to pass the time while she silently dreaded the impending conversation she had to have with Jackson. She prayed that he did not bring Veronica, because she did not have the desire or patience to listen to her unwelcomed critiques about how she should raise her daughters.